Is it visible?
It is.
Okay, so let's start off. The issue is how to compare energy action plans, and this is an evaluation method proposal. Just for a short overview, we need to talk about standardization, what are priorities and measures, actions, and finally, because we want to be comparable, about comparability. So, required standardization, the method for evaluation is more or less bound to the method of the construction of the energy plan. So we can't compare different premises. As for example here, Roman law and Anglo-Saxon law, they are two different constructions. You can compare them in their difference, but you cannot compare them in the effectivity, because the mechanisms are different.
Manfred, sorry to interrupt. This is Manuela speaking.
Yeah.
We are seeing the PowerPoint version of the presentation, but
Yeah.
we see it in the smaller format. So if you please could...
Okay, sorry for that. So
no problem. Yes. Okay, perfect.
Okay, sorry. So different premises are very hard to compare. So for conclusive comparability, as we want it between all the regions, we need a comparable structure of the components, and that is also an issue of standardization. And in our special case and in the prospect approach that we want to conduct as work package leaders, normally in action plans or in many action plans, framework conditions can distort the comparability. So we have chosen a standardized system for all steps to have all the same kind of data, and framework conditions, regional particularities, and so on, can be then introduced as a weighting factor. So the actions, the use of instruments can be compared, but as a weighting factor, for example, in an impact-effort relation, as we already did with our key priority matrix, we can cast a closer light on the result without losing particularities and without risking distortions in the results. So, what is the way to take? We have our baseline, and on the baseline, regional baselines, priorities were selected. These priorities can be seen as a chosen trail towards a target state from the starting point. So we have a target state is a low carbon economy with reduced emissions and so on. So there are some priorities to choose. I will talk on it on the next slides, just for an overview. The priority. The measure is more or less a vehicle for reaching the target state on the chosen track. So what to do to reach it? And the action is then the moving force for these vehicles, which can be seen under the aspect how to do it, how to move the vehicle on the trail towards the target. Well, yes, this is more or less poetic maybe, but it's easy to understand. So the baseline, we have for standardizations, I have of action plan development, and then come back to the process of evaluation. We have a baseline, we have an overall development of various priorities in different sectors, be it efficiency, be it mobility, I don't know. Some are convergent to the target, which is low carbon economy. Some are divergent. There is also the priority on low consumption, low costs, but this can only be reached currently by fossil-based fuels. So this is a priority in industry, for example, but it is divergent from the target. And some are neutral, like independency from imports, security of supply. These are more or less are affecting and may be also helpful for reaching the target, but they are not neither converging nor diverging. So the target is also some sort of filter, and in a first step, when we did choose our key energy priorities, the examination of the developments with the highest potential is the next step, with the highest potential to hit the target under the region's conditions. So we, when this examination has taken place and priorities, potential priorities have passed the filter, which is influenced by the target, we can eliminate the diverging priorities and keep the converging or neutral priorities. So we select our key energy priorities. If developments are converging, we take them into our priority matrix. If they are neutral and supportive, we can include them in our priority matrix or use them on the next level of hierarchy as a measure. If the development is diverging, we exclude them from our set. So the result is the set of the key energy priorities, and these priorities then are containing possibilities for various measures. And the next step was, or is, or we did by choosing the measures within the priorities, we kept suitable measures and left out non-suitable measures. So here is the example of, for example, smart energy grids. There are all kinds of measures that can be taken, but we kept, in our case, as a measure, grid automation pilots, because it has also a demonstration effect, and prosumer interaction models in the perspective of the possibility now to make energy communities. All other priorities with measures included are treated the same way. And here we get on to this chaotic overview. So we spoke about this here, and the measures now, for example, support and initiation of municipal efficiency projects needs to be examined closer. So what has been needs to be done, when, where, and who is the responsible. If we have collected this, we can submit this criteria in a SWOT analysis. We take a look on the measure and its framework for regional internal factors, strengths and weaknesses, but also in the light of external factors which are also having an influence on it. So if we have checked all that, we can think about how do we implement our measures in order to reach the target. And these are the actions. Just now as an overview, I go to the next slide before we then return to actions. So as the next step is a scheduling of actions, and in our model, we are not developing scenario funnels. For example, if that goes well, it will be that, and if it doesn't go well, it will be there. We are fixing a target scenario. We say the taken measures will lead to a reduction of emissions or grade of efficiency of this and that within the chosen timeline. So we arrange them by short-term, mid-term, and long-term measures or priorities, with the including measures. And so we can evaluate also the efficiency, or no, not, sorry, we need to define the actions. So the action is the central point. Define the actions to take to reach the target value that we have chosen. That's then what we need to develop in detail with Julio. So actions. The action is the driving force. The action is how to. And the how to is, we have in each region instruments. And these instruments are very similar all over Europe. We have, for example, planning instruments like assignment of selected zones for renewable energy generation. This is in spatial planning. We have policy and regulatory instruments. For example, in our neighboring province, in Styria, there is an obligation to connect to a district heat grid in case of new built objects. They have no choice. So to keep energy efficiency, for example, there in this region, this is an obligation. We have financial instruments, investments, subsidies on federal level in Austria, on regional level, on sectoral level also. We have supported loans, tax reliefs, and so on. We have organizational instruments like public participation models, which we successfully, for example, implemented for participation PV power plants with public participation. It's a good and working organizational instrument that we have developed. We have business instruments, purchasing syndicates, energy communities, which are to come, hopefully. And soft instruments, which is, for example, networking or awareness building. Let's go to the next slide. So this is an overview. I made a keyword or trunk keyword search on priorities and measures described in our returned action files. So within the priorities, promotion, promoting what? Region, efficiency. You see, also there, if you go down the list and it is not complete, it goes down about 70 rows. There is a comparability of priorities is not so easy then. In measures, it is the same. We can have promotional measures, promoting what? Heat, PV, I don't know what. So, for example, if we go to a lower level, let's say resident, the word trunk, resident, resulted in 5 responses. In 5 regions, the residential sector is addressed, and maybe in the remaining 2 regions, it is not addressed at all. So how do you want to compare? So comparability is action related. Action uses a standardized set of existing instruments which can be applied to each region because the systems are similar. And also these instruments, as I explained before, are independent from size, or more or less independent from size or particularities of the regions. And even the instruments are structured in a very similar way. Planning instruments, financial instruments. You see, we can have a very close look if we have a look at the action. The action, how do I use my instrument in order to bring my measure on the way to reach the target? Measure efficiency, for example. Related action, for example, use a given set of planning instruments, tools to gain more energy efficiency, more dense settlements, for example, to have short supply ways. We have also, for example, a measure, maybe increase of share of renewable energy. The related action may be the use of financial instruments for a higher quote of renewable energy generation. We have, for example, investment subsidies, feed-in tariffs, whatever that may be. It is comparable. Yeah. Measure carbon reduction. Related action may be applying most suitable business models to supply large parts of population with renewable heat in district heat systems. Yes. So actions are making use of a set of instruments, and this set of instruments is more ubiquitous and thus more applicable for evaluation than measures or priorities. They are carrying potential for better benchmarking between the regions, and also for mutual learning on how to put things on the way within the European framework. And actions can also be applied to a bundle of measures. Actions are not strictly bound to measures, but a bundle of measures, one action choosing the same instruments because they are suitable can serve a bundle of measures simultaneously. So priorities are not necessarily comparable. To underline it, awareness raising and electricity grid optimization is not comparable, but maybe the taken actions are comparable. Measures are also not comparable, like promotion of energy communities and public transport optimizations. So what do you want to compare? Apples with pears? And, you just can say it's different. What do you want to evaluate? You don't have the same basics for evaluation. But actions are comparable. They may regionally differ in weight, in the use of funds, of business models, and so on, and also for increasing efficiency measures. Oh, so I expected, I didn't secure it, save it. Just for returning where I started to use it also as a conclusion. So if we focus on a set of instruments to use within the action is the use of the instrument, framework conditions are less important. And we can even draw a new impact effort matrix, a much more impact effort matrix, because after the process of assignment of the SWOT, of analyzing challenges, we can better estimate expected impact and effort to take for reaching our target of low carbon economy. Yes, that was my contribution, and I'm open to questions.